So as you can see, Mr. Merz, it's filling up. Of course, there is great interest now in the German elections, but also as you, as a possible future chancellor, we know that the German economy is still one of the largest in the world. Fourth or fifth, there's discussions, but we know that the growth is not what it used to be. 23, I think, and 24 was low growth. So I would just not beat around the bush. I would just, of course, welcome you, but then also ask you, how do you see the likeliness for you as the CDU leader to be the next chancellor of Germany? And if you were elected,
100.
What would you do in your first 100 days as chancellor?
Okay, good. So first of all, many thanks for having me here in this distinguished audience. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, the German election campaign is running. We will have our federal elections on February 23rd, and we are leading the opinion polls, far ahead of all the others, and we are convinced that we will win and that we will then form a new government in Germany, and this is extremely necessary for our country to have a new government and new economic policy and so on. So you are seeing me very, very happy and very, very optimistic.
And I guess in those 100 days, you will, first ones, you have to deal with German competitiveness. But some things are not easily fixed. I think about energy prices, infrastructure, and all this. But how to reallocate more resources for what brings the German economy back on track and reviving growth.
Yeah. Back on track is the right word.
That was a little bit political.
The German economy is lacking behind our potential for years now, not just since 2021 when the running government came into office, but we have to overcome our structural deficits, and that is a lack of competitiveness of our entire industry. And in my view, key is the manufacturing industry of Germany. It's not services, it's not big tech, it's manufacturing industry. And this is still 1/4 of our industry, of our GDP, 1/4 of our strength. 1/4, this is the backbone of our economy. So what can we do in the first 100 days? There are some low-hanging fruits which can be done. The first one is energy prices. We are having the opportunity to pay some of the grid costs out of our federal budget. There is a special asset in the budget, which is the so-called Klima- und Transformationsfonds. You can take money out of that for a while to finance the grid. There are one big issue, this is migration, and we will immediately stop that part of the migration which is coming from family reunification. There are, to give you just a number, there are 500,000 within the last 4 years who came to Germany without any control. This has to be stopped immediately to get rid of this big problem in our country in terms of migration. And my third point is to take our focus on the producing industry, the manufacturing industry, and asking ourselves every day, what can we do to improve the competitiveness of our industry? Every day, every decision of my future government will only have one question: is it good for the competitiveness of our industry? Because we have to restore the competitiveness of this country. My conviction is there is still strength, there is still the will to do that, but the political framework is not enough, and that has to be improved.
If you're the next chancellor, you also have to, according to the latest opinion polls, collaborate with
unfortunately
other parties, either the Greens or SPD. Seems like FDP is struggling to meet the threshold. On the topics you just mentioned, you think you can persuade these potential partners then to align on those policies?
Frankly, I don't know. And I don't think about in future coalition categories. My focus is now on February 23rd only. And we have to win a relative strong majority within these elections. And as soon as we are so strong that we only need one and have the choice out of two, we are strategically in a very strong position. And that is my goal. And you will see, as soon as we are having these options, the other two will become extremely flexible. And then we have to tell them what we would like to achieve together. And this is my goal for the moment. Let's talk about that on February 24.
And I guess you're not exactly willing to say which one of them would be your program.
No, this is open, and strategically, it's for us extremely important to have, as I said, two options and not just one.
On, you mentioned energy and the steps you could do there. It's always interesting to go a little bit back in the past. How much of a mistake do you think closing down the nuclear plants were?
Well, we did two mistakes. The one was 2011, when we decided in general to get out of nuclear. And the second big mistake, and this was terrible for our economy, was the decision to close down the last 3 nuclear plants in Germany in April 2023. We never should have done something like that. It was crazy. It was damaging our industry. It was a big mistake. And we decided to figure out whether we can get them back on the grid. This is not sure. It's not for sure. But we are in general open for new nuclear plants in terms of 4th and 5th generation, including fusion. This is an option, and this will remain open under my leadership.
You're now importing nuclear electricity from France, aren't you?
We know that, and we know that, apologize for that we are doing a lot of threat to our neighbors, actually, with our energy policy. They have to pay for that, and they have to deliver to Germany for low prices, and they have to pay high prices as soon as the German energy grid is lacking of electricity. So this is something we have to come to an end to.
Coming back to also the possibility of doing structural changes that can revive growth. If you look at Spain, for example, and Greece, they had big challenges, especially Greece. Today, we see Spain as the fastest growing of all OECD countries, even beating the US when it comes to growth. Going back to 2000, then the economists ran a front page that Germany was the sick man of Europe. And after 5 years of reforms, Germany then became the engine of growth in Europe. How long do you think it will take to get Germany back on track? And since I mentioned the history, how much of those reforms were also reforms that the SPD was initiating from 2000, to be fair?
Interestingly enough, even though they are having a socialist government, the Spanish economy is running pretty well. Mm-hmm. And this is a proof that even social democrats are willing to take into account the reality. So, and that gives me my optimism that even the German social democrats could one day become reasonable in terms of economic policy. We have to bring our labor market in order. We have this special sort of subsidies for people who are not working called Bürgergeld, which is a big mistake to pay for not working and to give others not the best incentives to come back to the labor market. We will change the system, and as you might remember, I'm seeing here one of the leading civil servants from our former government. We had this with the so-called Hartz IV regulation on the labor market. This was something which really brought the labor market in Germany in the early 2000 up, and we had big successes, and at least back to this level of regulation, our labor market is my goal, so that we will have the opportunity to bring more people back to the labor market.
We know that the relationship between Berlin and Paris is critical for Europe. If you look at the Draghi plan with 400 pages of proposals, some of the proposals are also related to a common financial market, where Germany is on the skeptical side. I think on more proactive trade policies with Mercosur, with Mexico and others, there you will have more reluctance in France. So what, if you were the Chancellor, how will you deal with Paris? How do you agree that this is the most important relationship in Europe? And do you foresee that there can be compromises where you will accept a common financial market and Macron take the trade deals?
Yeah. Look, I'm very close to Emmanuel Macron, and we are meeting regularly on these issues, and I think that we have to overcome our disputes on Mercosur. It lasted much too long to come to an end with this endless debate on CETA, the agreement with Canada. Fortunately, we have it now, and Mercosur has to be passed and has to be agreed in the European Parliament and on the national level with the governments. And we can do that with majority vote in the Council, which is not the best solution. I would prefer to see unanimous votes on that, but if not possible, we should do that with majority vote. A second point is on capital market. I spent 10 years on the supervisory board of German Stock Exchange. Unfortunately, 3 efforts for mergers within the European Union failed. The last one was with London. Imagine if we had today a joint stock market exchange with London. This would be a huge advantage for the entire European continent, not just the European Union. So we don't have it. My approach is the following. Let us not speak about all these systems about how to save money from the banking sector. Let's talk about the open capital market and how to bring companies from Europe to the capital market. I'll give you 2 examples. We have 2 extremely successful companies in Germany on biopharmaceutical. The one was BioNTech, the other one was CureVac. And both went public, and not in Europe, not in Amsterdam, not in London, not in Frankfurt, not in Paris. They went to New York, to the Nasdaq in New York. So this is really something which should not happen any longer in the future. We have to provide companies, growing companies, with capital market infrastructure, and this is something which is, in my view, one of the key positions we have to achieve as fast as possible to give our companies the best platform for going public, not just in America, but also in Europe.
You said that you speak frequently with Mr. Macron. Do you speak also with Mr. Trump?
I sent him a letter for his inauguration yesterday, and I think we should be ready to meet as soon as possible. But there is one precondition. I would not like to see any European leader to go to DC without having before tried to coordinate what we are telling them from our European perspective. As soon as we are having a common European position, we are seen as a strong partner in DC. As long as we are popping up there and speaking different languages, everybody only speaking on his own behalf, on his own country, and not speaking on behalf of at least parts of the European Union, the better the entire European Union. We are in a position which could be much stronger. And remember the tariff debate we had in 2018, when Trump first administration was in office. We had these tariffs on steel and aluminium. And the response from Europe was, the common response, to put tariffs on Levi jeans, on whiskey, and on Harley-Davidsons. And within 6 months, the problem was resolved. The only way to resolve these problems is to be strong on the European side and to negotiate with the American side from a position of strength, finding out where we are having politics in common and finding out where we are having our own interests.
And here I think we come back to the importance of Berlin and Paris being aligned, I guess.
That's true, but there is at least one further partner we should take into account and which we should take onto the table as fast as possible, and that is Poland. I very much regret, look, we had this farewell tour from Joe Biden to Berlin a couple of weeks ago when he was in Berlin. And he was invited, the French president was invited, and the prime minister from the UK was invited. And they had a meeting in Berlin without the Polish prime minister. This could have happened in the 90s, last century, with the same configuration. The Polish prime minister is a man who should always be on the table if we are trying to figure out what we can do in common in the European Union. And this is just the first step. The next step is take into account on the table any other willing member state in the European Union to come as fast as possible to common European positions.
And there is another G7 country also,
yeah,
Madame Meloni.
Yeah, sure. I don't understand the reservations towards her. I think she is very pro-European. She is very clear in her position towards Ukraine and Russia, and she is very clear on the rule-based order of the European Union. Why don't we talk with her more often than we did in the past?
That's also very interesting.
This is not just interesting; it's necessary.
So when you look at the inaugural address yesterday, I think you probably have studied it too. What is your first take? And the executive orders.
And the executive orders, interestingly enough, what he mentioned and what he didn't. He didn't talk about Ukraine. He didn't talk about Europe. He was very much focused on his own, on America. America first, America second, America third. And he is formulating the American interests now. And interestingly enough, he promised to the American people that he would get the money in this battle about tariffs from other countries and from other people. I'm very interested to see how this will come out in the future. Tariffs are normally paid by your own people and not by others. So the open question for me is, what will this mean for the inflation rate in the US? What will this mean for the US dollar, for the currency? But this is something for the future. Currently for us, it's interesting that he did something which was predictable. The predictability of this president is clear, has always been clear. His positions had always been clear. No surprise for me. So let's work with him and let's figure out where we are having approaches in common. I just mentioned China.
Maybe a bit surprised that he picked up the phone and called Xi Jinping already on Saturday as president-elect.
Right. He invited some Europeans, surprisingly enough. But I think he will be willing to make deals, even with the Europeans. He is a deal maker. So let's think about what we can offer. For example, the liquid natural gas, LNG from Russia. Why not? If we have to take military equipment from the US, why don't we combine our purchases on the European level? So there is so much what we can do on the European side. I think he will be an interesting partner for us, provided we are on the European side knowing what we want in common.
I think Trump already said that to avoid future tariffs, Europe had to buy more LNG.
Sure.
And also increase the military expenditures. But you do have also a defense industry yourself in Germany.
We do, but we are not having enough. The European defense industry is not strong enough to provide our military with the equipment we need. So I had a meeting with the EPP party leaders, the European People's Party, which is my party family on the European level. We met on Friday and Saturday in Berlin. We had there one state president, 9 prime ministers, 5 deputy prime ministers, several opposition leaders from the entire European Union, and we agreed on 2 things. The one is a deep cut into the European currency, the European bureaucracy, not currency, sorry, a deep cut into.
Some would say that part of a currency too.
To preserve the strength of our currency. And the second was military procurement has to be more simple, standardized, and the question of scale. Mario Draghi made this in his report on the competitiveness of the European industry. Scale is one of the key answers to our strength. And we have to use our scale of the economies of scale, which is lagging behind what we can really do in this European.
Competition is very important in the market, but do you think we have gone too far, become more Catholic than the Pope when it comes to underlining competition law and not letting companies merge and build stronger units in Europe? Will you change that?
I have a personal view on that. In my view, the European competition law, especially the merger control directive, is too rigid. I give you 2 examples. The one was the already mentioned merger of German Stock Exchange and London Stock Exchange, which was not allowed by the DG4. The second was the famous example of Siemens and Alstom years ago, not allowed on merger control. So the relevant market for European companies is no longer just the European one. It's the global market. And we have to be competitive on the global market. And that's the reason why I'm in favor to change this regulation. It's not a question of execution. It's a question of the basic regulation. And the merger control, in my view, even as a lawyer, my view is it is too rigid. And the market is seen too narrow. The relevant market is no longer just the European one.
When you speak with Macron, this is on a separate note, you have a common challenge because he has competition on the right. And you also have competition on the right with AfD. Do you ever then discuss how to deal with that? What is the best recipe for conservative Christian democratic parties in Europe now to deal with the far right?
The simple answer on that is resolve the problems which are seen by the people. This is migration, this is anxiousness all day in terms of labor market, working places, criminality, and so on. And frankly, for us, for Germany, the situation is still easier than it is actually for France, because they have their presidential system. It's much more complicated to come to an agreement between the president and the parliament. The presidential system in France is giving some disadvantages to the president because it's so unbalanced between the president and the parliament. In my view, the German system is still better than the French system is, but we are faced with the same challenges coming from the right-wing populists, and my clear answer is resolve the problems in the center of the democratic parties of our system, and then they will become not stronger, but they will be weakened over time.
I guess you follow also the situation south of Germany and Austria, where the Conservative Party and the right-wing party might now go in coalition. Any thoughts on that?
Sure, it's a disaster. And the development to this point is quite simple. They tried to moderate and to bring them into the democratic center back by giving them parts of the government. And the right opposite happened. So this is my conclusion for Germany is the clear answer. We will not take these right-wing populists into a government which is led by me. Never. I will not do that. I will try to figure out where we can have our necessary coalitions, and then I will try to get my partners in this coalition convinced that we have immediately to resolve the problems which made them as strong as they are today. I remind you, they came into parliament in 2017 when the first migration crisis happened in Germany. This was their first step in parliament. 2021 again, 2025 most likely again, 2029 we have to try to get them out.
I know you're meeting with President Zelensky later tonight. President Zelensky spoke here today, and he came with, in my view, quite a historical reminder that they're fighting this war on behalf of all of Europe. When Putin started the attacks, he had 200 soldiers. Now he has mobilized 600. And even in such a situation, they're pretty much holding the line. Of course, they are also looking at what is happening now in DC and also, I guess, in Germany. And according to the press, the foreign minister ran out of a meeting, cabinet meeting the other day. That I think, you know, that doesn't happen frequently in cabinets. That's at least not my experience in my home country. What would be your what would be your policy on Ukraine, and is that an area will you make compromises?
Well, I very much regret that we still have to talk in the third year about this war. And my deep conviction is that if we had gave them better support before, stronger support before, this war could have been over. But now we are in a very critical phase. We don't know yet what the American government will do. And I will tell him the same when I will meet him tonight, as I did shortly before Christmas, that he can rely on us and that we are not fighting a Ukrainian war against Russia, but we are fighting for our freedom, for our societies, for the way of life we are having in this part of the European Union and in this part of Europe, and that we should try to do everything that Putin one day will give up, because he is seeing that he has no chance to win this war and to overtake Ukraine. But this is something which is, from today's perspective, extremely uncertain. And I very much regret that we are in this phase of this terrible war. This war has to come to an end, but this will not come to an end from a position of weakness. This will only come to an end from the position of strength, and for Putin, without any hope to win and to take Ukraine.
A big thank you to Friedrich Merz. Vielen Dank. And
many thanks to you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.